Okay, so today I want to talk to you about MongoDB unit testing. If you are fairly new to Go, or if you are fairly new to unit testing, or both of them, you want to watch this session very carefully and be attentive. And in fact, not just MongoDB, but if you are dealing with any kind of third party Go package in your Go project that deals with network calls, then you can use the same method or the same technique that I'm going to explain to you. And you might wanna watch this session a couple of times till the concepts are clear to you. So consider pausing the video or watching it again after some time. All right, so let's get started. Let's get back to VS Code. All right. Now I have a separate project here and I have a very simple code here, and some of it we already done in previous two sessions in on MongoDB, so I'm not going to go much into detail. So let's see what we have here. So I have a main.go file, I have a simple user struct, and I've got bson tagging to this struct as well. All right, and then I have a main function. If you look at the main function, I'm calling Mongo connect method. So by the way, connect method is a combination of calling new connect, new client on Mongo, which gets you a client, and calling connect method on that client. So this one method is a combination of two methods, two other separate methods. That is new client plus connect on client. So this is a shortcut sort of. Okay, so what you get back is a client. Handle the errors. Then using that client C, I get the database Tronics. Okay, and using that database, I get the collection products. And using that collection, now I'm going to pass this collection to my method insert data. Okay, my function insert data, and I'm also passing it the user object. Now, what is this function? If you come back here, so insert data actually takes two arguments. So one is a pointer to the collection, and another is a user struct. Okay, and it returns this pointer to insert one result and an error. All right, and then internally what it does, it actually calls this collections insert one method. Okay, so this is not anything new to us. We've seen many examples of this in previous two sessions. So if you haven't seen them, please do watch them now. So this is going to insert one document into your database. All right, and this time it's accepting this is the user struct that it's going to insert into the database. Then you get response error, you handle them, and you return them. Okay, there's nothing fancy here. There's nothing fancy here. Okay, now let me just go ahead and run this. So go run main.go. All right, if I go back to my database, the Tronics just got created, products just got created, and I have just one document here, first name, last name, Krunal Shimpi. All right. Now I could have written this piece of logic here into my main function itself, but that's never a good idea because A, you don't want to bloat your main function too much, because it actually makes it very difficult for unit testing because it doesn't have any dependency injection. Okay, and B, that way your code is not modular. So you want to make your code modular so that it's easy for you to manage. Okay, it's easy for you to read and everything. You want to you lose the benefits of modularity then. And modular code also makes becomes easy to becomes efficient in terms of dependency injection. Okay, so that's why I have a separate function here. Now let's write unit test for that. So let's write unit test for this insert data function that I have. So I just want to check whether this method returns uh, proper insert one result pointed to it, and it returns no errors. Okay, so I just want to write a unit test for that. So let's go ahead and open a file mongo underscore test.go. Okay, you can code along with me if you want. So package main, you want to write the unit testing, you want to write the testing function, just type tf and press enter. So it automatically fills it up for you. And right here, insert result, insert data. Okay, that's going to be my test case name here. All right. And what I'm going to do here is now I want to test this method. So it accepts a pointer to the collection and the user. The user I can create, that's not a problem, right? You can just create a user out of this particular user type, right? It's not a problem. What about this Mongo collection? Well, to get that, you have to create the DB mongo.database, and to get that, you have to first of all create the collection client. But we have some code here, right? Why don't we use that? So let's do it. So I'm going to copy all the code from here to this line 32, and I'm going to paste it here. All right, and I'm going to save it. Okay, and I'm going to now assert the result. So I have an assert library, so that is tj assert, and I'm expecting error to be nil. Okay, so I'm going to assert that the error is nil, and I'm going to assert that that res here is of type insert one result. So because res is going to be the pointer to insert one result, and I just get a zero value insert one result here. So it's going to compare the type of this, which is expected, to this, which is the given. Okay, I save it, all the errors are gone, and if I run this now, I get okay. So my test case passed. But you know what, let's get back to the database and see what happened. Well, you see, it actually added another document, and this is not what unit testing is supposed to do. This is not unit testing. This is more like integration testing, because your test case here is actually dealing with the live server. It is modifying the state of the live actual server, and that's not what you do in the unit test. Unit test is supposed to uh, simulate the database, because the unit test is meant to test your logic, and it's supposed to test your algorithm and your conditions, but it's not supposed to make network calls. It's not supposed to insert documents into an actual database. It's not supposed to do that, because that's not unit test. That's in the integration test. That's in your end-to-end testing. That's where you do this kind of stuff, but not in unit test. So what do I do here? Well, Uh, we can make use of interfaces for that, Go interfaces. All right, and so let me get started with that. So let me just create a separate folder here. So just creating it so that we keep our code modular, and I'll be using some of this practice in our application as well later on. So I'm going to create a folder named db iface, because iface here stands for interface, and db because I'm creating an interface that has something to do with the database here, in this case MongoDB. Creating the folder, creating a file inside that, just naming it interface.go for now. Alright, so this is going to be package db iface. Okay, and now I want to define an interface. Okay, so to write an interface, just type dyi and type. I'm going to name this interface collection API. All right. Now, just go along with me right now. I'll just get to the point of my explanation. So now we know that this collection has this insert one method. Okay, let's just open it up, and let me copy this method here. Okay, and let me put it to this. Okay, so let me save this, and let me just type Mongo here. All right, all good. Let me give it some description, because I've got this yellow line here. It's bugging me. A collection API interface. just any description. Okay, so now I have an interface that has this method. Okay, and this method has this particular signature. That means any any struct or anything in Golang, any type that implements this particular method with the same signature can be considered collection API, right? Because it implicitly implements it collection API interface. That's the whole meaning of interface, right? So that means if I go back here, I can replace this MongoDB collection to dbiface collection API. It added the import statement here, and I've got dbiface collection. This can totally work, right? Because see, what I'm passing here is a collection. And you know that collection has this method called insert one, right? We just saw that. So it is part of this collection.go, which is part of your MongoDB package, right? It has this method one. It does implement it. And that means that collection is also of type collection API, right? So anywhere where I'm expecting collection API, I can pass collection, that is mongo.collection, right? So this can work, right? So let's give it a shot. Let's see if it works, all right? So I'm going to execute go run main.go again, and yeah, it works. If I come back to the database, I got three documents now, right? So this one, first one was from the first execution, second one when we tried to run that unit test, which was an integration test actually, and this one came from after changing this type to the interface type, right? So that means this works, right? So what I have here, let me just write it down. So we have an actual collection here, okay? So which is mongo.collection, all right? And when you, it also implements collection API, right? Because it has that one method that implements this. It's got the same signature as what we have in the collection API, right? Collection has a lot of other methods like delete, insert many, delete one, delete many, but it's got this one method that implements this one method that collection API has. It means that it's implementing all the methods that are in collection API, and that's why it is of type collection API, right? So it also implements collection API, okay? And when you call insert one, will work on actual collection, right? And that's what we figured out so far, right? But that's not good enough for us for our unit testing. I mean, when I run this, I'm still getting an insertion in my database. I create a document, right? So if I were to do the same thing in my main, in my test case, it's still going to be the same, right? Because I'm passing the collection type here and it's going to create the document. I don't want that. So what do I do now? Well, what we have to do now is we create a fake collection, okay, and we'll give it some name, okay. So let's just call it mock collection, okay. We'll create a fake collection type called mock collection. It will also implement collection API. It means that this particular type will have to have a method that implements, that has the same signature as insert one, okay. And that method will also have fake implementation, and it will work on, when invoked, it will work on, it will work on fake collection, right? So that's what we want to do right now. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do here in the main test itself, I'm going to create a struct. So just type tys and mock collection. Okay, and that is it. And I'm going to create a method for this mock collection. Okay, and the method signature is going to be the same as insert1. Okay, because we want it to implement collection API. Okay, and the only way it can do that is if it implements all the methods that are in collection API. Right now, it's only one method that it has to implement to be of type collection API, right? So here I can put my fake implementation. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to create insert, man, I'm just going to create uh, a zero value insert many result, and I'm going to return it back, and I'm going to set error to nil, right? So I'm going to save this, and this has become, what is this? C type insert one result. Okay, I think I have a spelling mistake here. All right. So this is my fake implementation. Now I actually don't need this code. I don't need to create the client. I don't need to create the DB. I do need to create the database collection, but not using this. I have my fake collection here, right? My fake collection, which is of type this. So I'm going to, and it implements insert one. Okay, so I'm going to create my mock call collection. Okay, and it is going to be mock collection, right? And now what I can do is I'm going to type mock call here. Okay, so if you see what we were doing here was we were actually passing an actual proper collection struct. Here what we are doing is passing a mock collection struct. Again, we are passing the same user ID, the same user object. Of course it can be any other user object, and that's still fine. Okay, and now I'm going to run this test case, and voila, it worked. But the thing is, if you come back here, it hasn't added any document to the database. That's because this is a fake implementation, right? This is because it actually executed this method, and this is not connecting to any database. I mean, in the main function, when you had this mongo.connect, it came with all the gears. It came with all the connection details to the Mongo database. You know, the protocol and the local host and the port, and then you had the database and the collection. So it was actually meant to work on an actual database. This one right here is not meant to do that. It's just faking the implementation. It's the fake one, right? And that's what the unit test is supposed to be. Now you might argue that how is this useful to me right now? Well, you know what? I mean, you can have a multiple logic here. For example, if let's say you have a condition that if user dot first name, why am I putting brackets here? Still on JavaScript mode, is not equal to Krunal, okay, then you just want to return at this point with nil and error, okay, and for my bad, okay, it's something like this. What is this? Undefined, I think it is errors. All right, okay, so if the name is not Krunal, then I want to return an error. So if you look at this function right now, it has got two execution path. Okay, so one execution path is if the user first name is anything but Krunal, then you want to go ahead and execute this. But if the name is Krunal, then you want to go ahead and execute this. So there are two possibilities of the errors, right? There are two possible execution paths. And if you want to test this right now, for example, I'm going to now pass the same thing here. Okay, so insert data. So we want to also check if this method works or not. So I'm going to pass any data that is other than Krunal Shimpi, right? So in this case, my error is going to be not nil, right? And I can just copy paste this statement from here, and let's see if it works. If you execute it, it works, right? Because in the second case it was expecting the error to be not nil, and that's we are actually executing. I mean, that's we are checking our unhappy scenarios as well. So this is an unhappy scenario, and we are able to test that as well, right? So that is the whole idea of your unit test. Okay, so you have to first of all make sure that you are making your functions that is doing the actual logic, that's implementing the actual logic against the database in a separate function like this. Make sure that everything that you need to execute operations on the database are acceptable as arguments to the function, and that is how you can actually inject dependency into your function. That's called dependency injection. If you were doing this, if you are creating collection within the function, then there is no way you can actually fake it, right? So this is very important. Okay, and then what you want to do, you want to create an interface that implements this method, and then you want to create a mock type, and the mock type also needs to implement the same method. And in your unit test, you want to use that mock type instead of an actual type. So everywhere where the actual type was needed, you need to pass the fake one, because the fake one also implements the interface that the actual one is implementing. Because this is the interface that both the fake one and the actual one need to implement. Now, usually the third party libraries come with their own interfaces like this within that package itself that you can directly use. But I think for MongoDB you don't have that, so you'll have to write your interfaces like this. So you'll have to do a little bit of writing here in your application to get it to work, right? So this is the way. Write an interface. That interface will be the kind of interface that will need to be implemented by your actual type and your mock type as well. Okay, so and make sure that the argument accepts the interface type. It doesn't actually accept the actual type, because then you won't be able to unit test it. So I hope this session was very useful. And there's another thing that you can of course do. So for example, uh, we know that the collection has a lot of other methods, right? So for example, we have delete many. Okay, delete one, for example. Let me go back to this. Okay, and let me just grab this. So it's not like you just can you just have to keep one method. You can keep adding multiple methods to it. Well, the Go standard says your interface are supposed to have maximum like 3 or 4 methods, but you know a lot of people like AWS have gone ahead and implemented interfaces that have like 50 or 60 interfaces. Well, whatever floats your boat, right? So you should uh, exercise discretion wherever possible, but try to implement all the methods necessary. Okay, and now let's say as part of your insertion, you also want to delete anything that you find unuseful, so you can actually have the same method here now, right? And mock collection, if I can only type right. And this is yes, so I have the second implementation of the same method. Now I can put some fake implementation here. And in this delete method also, if I want to actually do some insertion, then I can also call that method here as well. Now this insert one is going to call this fake method. Okay. So that's how you implement new methods. So if you have, let's say, the find one method, then you can keep adding it to collection, and for each method you'll have to add a fake implementation here. Okay, that way unit tests kind of become, they become bigger, but they also give you confidence that your code in terms of its logic and behavior is expecting the way it is supposed to, because over time you'll be making a lot of small changes and it's not possible to test your application and all logics, completely every time you make one tiny little change, right? So having comprehensive unit test is the way to go. I know it's kind of boring and a lot of people actually avoid it, or choose some shortcuts, but see if you can have comprehensive unit test. So I think that was a very long session, but I hope that it was useful. If you still didn't get it, then please watch the video again and let the concept sink in, because when we start implementing our application, I won't be going through all the details, and I would assume that you have these details down. All right, thank you very much indeed.